Hello, friend. Welcome to the Happy Family Club. We're delighted to have you join us. Our mission is to help you have a happier, stronger family. We do that by bringing you the world's greatest experts in family, marriage, parenting, and relationships. We interview them to discover their secrets, their strategies, their techniques, and bring them to you so that you can cherry pick exactly what you need right now to have more success and more joy in your family.
And if you enjoy this interview, we encourage you to share it with your friends and your family, and come on to the happyfamilyclub.com and see if you can find more information that's going to help you and your family be happier.
Again, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the interview. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Happy Family Club podcast. We are so excited to have you here. And man, we have an incredible treat for you today. We've got Doug Holt here from The Powerful Man. And Doug's just a tremendous individual. He graciously has agreed to spend some time with us. And we're going to talk a lot about how men play a central role in the family and how that, brings greater happiness. But we'll let Doug talk a lot more about that. So do you want to talk a little bit about
Doug for a second? I've been learning a lot about Doug lately. He's the owner of several companies, all centered around helping business owners grow their businesses and lead the greatest life they can lead. And his passion lately has been the powerful man, which is so awesome.
Very cool.
In our circles, because the man in the family affects so many aspects of how happy your family is. And I love that his passion is the powerful man. Yeah. It's a company centered around helping businessmen become better husbands, fathers, and basically leaders in their community and in their careers and in their life without sacrificing their businesses.
Yeah, which we see a lot, right? A lot of people,
they
gain the world and they lose everything that's most important. It's like, dang it.
Don't do that. But another thing about Doug, he's a father, he's a husband, he's a trusted friend, an advisor, he's an entrepreneur, which we love. We have that in common. And he's an investor, he's an adventurer, he's just a regular guy who really likes learning new things. And his clients mostly love about him that he's trusted. He's a trusted advisor and a friend.
And obviously approachable. I mean, we see this here.
Yeah, we see it right here. You'll enjoy getting to know him as he shares his dream and his passion with us.
Yeah. So awesome. Cool. Doug, we're gonna dive some more into your backstory in just a minute, but I just thought we could start off with a very simple question. And the question is what's one key principle that you have seen that makes a dramatic impact or a big difference in the happiness and the success of a family? And actually, maybe before I'm going to cut you off already, but maybe before you answer that, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're at right now. I mean, I'd love to hear your backstory. Just tell us about your family and about these businesses you run, and dig a little deeper there for us.
Yeah, so I'll start with the present and I'll work backwards, or the beginning, I should say. So I'm a father, as you said earlier. So thank you for that gracious introduction, and thank you for allowing me to be here with you guys. So I have a daughter who's 3, a son who's 6. I've been married for 10 years and with my wife for longer. And we're very fortunate. We were talking about this the other day. We live the life of our dreams, right? And that was very manifestation, but it was very deliberate in how we did it. And like a lot of people, when we got married, we thought, this is going to be easy. Well,
wow.
Yeah, exactly. Not quite the case for us. And it's my life kind of follows that typical hero's journey in the sense that my wife and I ran into problems and we couldn't figure out how can two people that love each other so much not seem to be able to connect. We tried marital counseling. That didn't work. It seemed to make the problems worse, not better. Right. And it was like, I always use that analogy, and my wife and I talk about it. It was like we were driving this high performance vehicle, but we were looking in the rear view mirror to figure out how to go forward.
Right.
And it just didn't work for us. And I'm an entrepreneur. I had 6 companies at one time. So a little bit crazy, like whoever has 6 businesses. And we couldn't figure out exactly how to get on the road. And then there wasn't the powerful man. There didn't seem to be anything out there that fit for men like me, business owners who are heart-centered, wanted to do the right thing, wanted to invest in my family without sacrificing the business. The message out there, which you guys I'm sure are familiar with, was you have to hustle harder. You have to work more. You have to do all of these things. And then when you get in your 60s and 70s, you can enjoy your family. And that just didn't resonate with me.
Nope, not at all. That whole idea, like do whatever it takes, including cut your family, cut your health, cut your everything. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
No, it really doesn't. And, you know, luckily for me, I lived in Santa Barbara, California at the time. And one of my businesses was a very elite private training studio. Oh, yeah. So we tortured people for a living, basically, right? And got them in shape. And I got to see these people who were twice my age, twice my senior, very successful. And I got to see two roads, right? One road led to true happiness, and the other road had a lot of wealth and success as well, but not happiness, much disconnect from the family, disconnect from self. So I had those warning signs as well as a pathway of ways that you could be better. Yeah. And that was really helpful for me as we came into this. Yeah. So fast forward a little bit further to the present, I had been coaching, business coaching, men and women. So CEOs, owners of Fortune 200 companies for a number of years. And that's when I linked up with the founder of The Powerful Man, Tim Matthews, and he and I started coaching each other and working with him. And I loved what he was doing, his business model, right? He was helping business owners. And again, it was more business coaching. But we realized is the same thing that you just mentioned. So many businessmen are sold this dream, and I was too, right? This idea that if I put my head down and I work really hard, then I provide for my family, then everybody's going to love me and take care of me, and everything's going to be great, right?
Yeah.
And like a lot of businessmen, I found myself as well looking up, and the guys we were working with, when they just felt stressed, they felt burnout, things weren't working as well. And they woke up feeling disconnected. And we often say to guys, and maybe you can relate it in the past or people you know, that they'd be like, hey, I'm laying 6 inches from my wife, but we feel 6 miles apart.
Yeah.
Right. And that distance and disconnect is just there. So we evolved our business coaching business to help businessmen. First, we said, hey, look, what's the most important thing to you? Right. Well, everybody says the same thing. It's my family.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Where's your family in your calendar? Yeah. So we started focusing on the marriage first and realizing that the husband and wife were really the key cornerstone of the marriage, right? That's who the kids are going to be looking up to, whether it be adult children or younger children. Yeah. And once we did that, we started noticing, we also still do business coaching with these guys. We started noticing a trend where everything started to fall into alignment. Amazing. When you get the couple to reconnect, it all got better.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I have seen that. We've seen that together. I mean, the times when we are, totally in harmony and totally in unity, business just fires like crazy.
Yeah.
And when it's not, the emotional distraction is overwhelming and it totally depletes your business ability. And we've seen that. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it consumes you, right? Like when you're fighting with this person that you care about and you love so much, and at times you love them but don't like them. We've all, at least I've been in that. So I'll speak for myself. Yeah. But it consumes you while you're at the office. It consumes you when you're in negotiations. And to have that where instead of that, you have this passion within your marriage, the passion and harmony within the home, that gives you a foundation from which you can jump off from and really make a difference in the world and an impact through your business.
Totally. It makes me think of a number of years ago, I did consulting for a large financial firm, and they were trying to automate a lot of their systems and their marketing, which is my background. And I was trying to drill down. There was something missing in the conversation, and I was trying to drill down as like, what's going on here? And finally, the business partner leaned to the original founder. He says, why don't you just tell him? And he says, okay, here's really why we're doing all this. He says, I got to spend more time at home or my wife's going to leave me. Mm-hmm. And it was all consuming. It was driving all of his business. It was distracting him from everything. And I realized that was actually the first time. That was probably like 15 years ago. Yeah. And a major light bulb went off in my head. I was like, holy cow, like this guy's sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars. And the thing that's eating his lunch is a bad marriage. He's got to figure out something better. He really needed you, but you weren't around 15 years ago.
No, I hear that often. No, we weren't. And we weren't around for me. Right. And that's why eventually I started selling off my companies coming into this full time, because as you guys know, it's so rewarding helping other people. Like when you can help somebody else achieve their dreams, it just makes life so worth it. And I fell in love with this. My wife was on board. She got to meet some of the other families we've affected. And today we have a couple thousand men that are active within what we call the movement of the powerful man.
So awesome. That's
So
great.
great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just incredible story. Well, so let's dive into some of the, let's look at that key principle. And what would your answer be to that idea that, what's the one key principle that really makes a difference in terms of family happiness and success?
Yeah, that's a hard one because there's so many that come to mind right away. However, when I think about it, because I just got off a call with a client I'm working with one-on-one, and he's going through this. And it's a concept we call the lighthouse. And the way that we look at this is through the lens of polarity, like a feminine and masculine. Doesn't mean one's better than the other. I just want to make that abundantly clear. But a bell-shaped curve, we all have feminine and masculine energies. So we call it the lighthouse. And the difference is oftentimes there can be a storm brewing within the marriage, a storm within the relationship. And if you can imagine a ship out at sea, and the storm is coming in, and it's just pounding the ship, and the ship is out there and it's looking for safe harbor, and it sees a lighthouse come on. Now the lighthouse comes in, and the captain of the ship goes, oh, great. Now I can miss the rocks and actually get to safe harbor and feel safe so I can relax. And as that captain steers that boat towards this lighthouse, the lighthouse goes off. And the captain, of course, has to go back out to the treacherous sea where the storm is, where imminent danger can be there, but it's better than the rocks. And then the lighthouse may come back on. Captain goes, great. Okay, now it's working. I'm going to go back in. It goes off. Eventually, the captain has to say, look, I need to find a place that's reliable, a place that's consistent. It has to go down to another harbor, right, to find that safety. And in this analogy,
thing comes to my mind initially. You come home from work, you've done everything, and it's always fascinating. And it's like women do this all the time, especially single moms. I mean, I grew up in by the time I was 9 years old, my mom was a single mom raising 6 kids.
Yeah, wow.
And so she was working, and she was managing the house, and she was being the mom, and she was being the dad, right? And she she did it all. Now that doesn't mean that she didn't check out sometimes and she used to go to the dollar theater and sit there in the middle of the afternoon by herself and cry and eat popcorn, right? So it's like,
That's her therapy. Yeah, she never leaves.
Like, okay, but I get it, right? But so I'm interested in the depletion thing, and I think a lot of men, they look to their wives to I want to show up and I want you to fill me up, right?
100%.
And then the wife's like, hey, but I'm depleted. I've been doing the kids and I'm working. And so it seems like a vicious cycle. And I just wonder what your insights on that are in stopping that vicious cycle, because it seems really powerful on the negative side.
Yeah. So we teach a whole segment on this, and most men focus on business first.
Yeah.
Right. And then they'll focus on, so we teach 5 we call territories. I'll go over them real quickly. Self, health, wealth. Now, wealth can be spirituality, abundance, money, relationships, and business, right? Cool. We teach them in that order. Mm-hmm. And the reason is most people put business first, then wealth, then maybe relationships, health, and self last. Right. And most of these men have this story that I will do anything for my family. I'll give them the shirt off my back and all of these things. I'll provide for them. Yeah. But then they come in with an empty cup, so to speak, to your point, and they're looking for their wife to fill them up, which then puts them in this needy energy.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I've asked literally thousands of women this, but is a needy man sexy, right? And women are,
no.
That's typically the response I get. It's now she's got, great, now I got an adult child that I have to take care of and fill up. And she's like, look, I got stuff too. And it's okay to have that. Of course. What we teach the men do is, how do you fill yourself up outside of work? Because most of these guys have the identity of working. You're a world-class copywriter and teacher of copywriters, and you're a father, a husband, and all of these things that come with it. And most men have just this identity of what they are at work. Yeah. This is who and what's the question most people ask? Hey, what do you do? Yeah. And that becomes their identity, and they'll stick to that and come back to it. When they get home, that identity is no longer there. Yeah. And so unless they fill their own cup, so to speak, by taking care of themselves, they can't show up to the family and take care of their family as well.
Yeah. So it's so interesting you say that, because without your training, not to toot my own horn, but when I was introduced, when I was deep into the copywriting world, my introduction would always say husband, father, copywriter on the side. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how I saw myself that way. And I think that over the years, that's been a powerful effect on me being able to fill my own cup and not be, am I needy?
Super needy, right.
No, she said not super needy. I like that. Clarify that. Thanks, Dave.
I just want to speak the truth,
Well, that's a big thing. You're basically rewriting your identity. You're setting yourself up for success on what your priorities are.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm sure you guys have heard of the rocking chair test. And for those people watching, maybe not have, is when you're sitting in a rocking chair in your 70s on your porch, what are the things when you look back that are the most important to you? Yeah. Right. And for most of us, it's going to be our family, our loved ones, the cherished memories spending with those people. And business may be fourth, for some people, probably not though. Right. Yet, I always say, show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities.
Yeah.
And so I'll ask the men all the time, they're like, oh, well, my wife and I are disconnected. Look, when's the last time you guys went on a date? When's the last time you took her out? Yeah. Like, pull up your, I'll be on a call with a guy, and a lot of the men that we work with, we do group coaching. And what I do mostly with the company, we have 8 coaches or so, is I'll come through and do one-on-ones. And I'll in this situation, I'll say, hey, screen share, show me your calendar right now. and I'll literally like, okay, cool. Where's your wife on there? You said she's your number 1 priority. Where are your kids? Where's your self-care? Where's your health? Where's it on your calendar? Like, oh, it's a meeting with Bruce, and you're meeting with finance. Meeting with
Bruce is not self-care, dude. Bruce is not. Yeah, it's not your wife.
No, it's not. And so those guys are really putting what they say they want in the back burner, and they're really putting out fires because that gives them significance, right? They feel like the man because people are coming to them, they're answering questions, they're needed in that moment. And as that disconnect happens, back to the lighthouse analogy, when their partner, their wife in this case, can't trust them to always be there, or at least be consistent and stable, right? She has to rely on not needing him. That makes sense.
Right.
Like
Yes,
she can't trust that he's going to be there. So he's no longer needed at the house, even though he really is.
Right.
And so that's going back to your other point. That's when he retreats to his cave.
Got it.
So you're saying it's important for men to identify who they are, not only in their work, in their career, but at home with their family.
I think it's more important.
Yeah.
I think it's more important than for them to identify who. Well, we do it when someone first comes into our flagship program. It's called the activation method, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because men become we call deactivated, right? And that's why you made a great point. These guys are all alphas. Some of them are ex-athletes. You know, they're crushing the world outside of the home, and it's almost like as soon as they touch that doorknob, it's like they're kryptonite.
Yeah.
And they shrink in their nature and they become deactivated.
Yeah.
A lot of guys will talk about it being like a former version of themselves. Like, I remember when, my 20s, I had all this energy and gusto about life and passion.
Yeah.
My wife and I would dance in the kitchen, or whatever the story may be.
Yeah.
And they've lost that. Well, the truth is it's still inside of them, and they just need to be reactivated to that. And part of that is rewriting the story of, one is who they are, who they're showing up as, not who they are, who they're showing up as. And two is who they want to be showing up as. And then we look at the gap. Where's the gap between those two things? And how do we, what's the bridge there?
Yeah. I remember, again, a couple of years ago, I did an interview with a guy, very successful, worth just shy of $1 billion in personal net wealth, and lots of companies, lots of stuff. And we got done with the interview, and he sat back and he was like, man, I feel like I've just gone through a therapy session. I said, Mark, what do you mean? He said, I feel like I need to pay you. He says, everywhere I go, I'm the guy with the answers. He says, I have to be the Teflon man. And he says, everywhere I go, I got to be on. And he says, but I got to sit down with you. And he says, and I just got to relax. You weren't digging me for any answers, and we were just talking and interviewing. And he said, and I said, well, being the Teflon guy, is there any one thing that you have seriously regretted? And he said to you, and this won't surprise you, he said, all those years, he said, I was with my wife in Italy a number of years ago. We were standing on this beautiful bridge, and I realized my family had all grown up, because he was now in his 70s. My family had all grown up, and my wife had her whole other life. She had unlimited funds to do whatever she wanted with, and she did. And he said, I realized like I had no connection with my family. And he's like, okay, I'm going to change this. And so he started doing stuff. But, now he's in his 70s, and not that that's too late at all, but he started that reactivation that you're talking about. And it was powerful for him not to always have to be the Teflon guy.
It is.
We identify where he was coming from. So,
well, they always say it's lonely at the top, and it is, unless you're surrounding yourself with other people at the top.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
We call a lot what we do. So we have a physical location. We bought a ranch, right? So it's 106 acres that the men could come to, and we host events all over the world. We kind of describe it as the unicorn watering hole, right? A lot of the men we work with are unicorns. They're, they're elite at so many levels. Yeah. And now we have the watering hole where none of them are at the top. Yeah. Right? They're all at equal footing, and they can discuss business without an issue. They can discuss their relationships with their kids, addiction, whatever comes up for them.
Right.
Yeah. In an environment where there's no judgment and there's no one trying to get one up on you or do business with you. It's not about that. Some guys do business together, but there's no pitching. It's really about how do each of us become better men for our families, for ourselves, for our communities.
There you go. So let's go back to, by the way, that's awesome. Margie and I definitely, you're probably not invited, but the 106 acres would be fun to see.
Yeah, we'd love to have you guys out.
So I want to go back to the lighthouse and that idea about being that consistent, reliable source and drawing family. And maybe we can dig a little bit deeper in terms of application on that. So if you were to identify like one or two or three like very actionable, applicable things that you could do to be more reliable and to show up with the family, to draw them to you, to that safe harbor. I guess two thoughts come to my mind. One is how to show up as that lighthouse, how to draw your family, and then how to be that safe harbor and to create that safe harbor. So that's a lot of questions, but throw some ideas at us.
Yeah. There's so much. So, we have multiple 1-year programs that just cover this kinds of topics, because it's a lot of unlearning and people aren't taught this. One, the first and foremost is you've got to have a way of communication, and men and women communicate differently. They just do. We say women want to be seen, heard, and desired, right? And oftentimes the couples talk about logistics. It's just about logistics. It's not really like what's going on. And the men lack the empathy or the skill set yet to get into the empathy to really understand what is going on for their partner. What is it real, and what's it like experiencing it? If she says, I'm exhausted today, and the guy responds, "You're exhausted." Well, I had 6 meetings. I did this. That's not someone understanding. That's like almost trying one-upmanship. So the first thing to do is we teach the guys how to create a space where safe communication can land, right? How to exactly to do that. And it starts off formulaic because the guys have never done it, right? And there's a great story that I've heard where if you look at men and women through anthropological times, like back in the day, the guys would go out hunting. So, Josh, if you and I were going out hunting, we don't talk, right? Because we don't want to scare the game. So we grunt, just grunt and point and go through. Whereas women might be going out and they'll go out, men tend to be just stronger because of testosterone and the way our biology is formed. Women will go out and let's say they're collecting berries. Margie might say, hey, we got to go collect berries by the side of the river, but not the river that's closest to us, the second river, because the berries that are closest to us, those berries right there, they're poisonous. The ones that are further away, they're fresh, but watch out for the snake. There's a snake usually there on the left, so don't leave the babies down, because you leave the babies down, that becomes a problem. There's also a saber-toothed tiger down the way. And so they're going to go into detail with everything because that's the survival of the whole family there. Like if you get the wrong berries, that's an issue. So we teach men how to empty the berry baskets of their woman so that she can feel fresh and just let it go. And guys, especially the guys we work with, and I don't know about you, but I was way guilty of this. All day I would spend my whole professional day solving problems. When I came home, I wanted to solve all my wife's problems because I loved her and, I know exactly what you need to do. And she wasn't feeling heard. I didn't know that. Or sometimes she'd say, I'm not feeling heard. Like, I can repeat exactly what you said word by word.
Exactly. I'll say it back to you. I heard it.
And that didn't help.
Feeling her.
Exactly. And I had no idea what that meant, right? And here I am, an adult male, I just didn't know, and I felt incompetent, quite honestly. And I couldn't find there wasn't a really good resource for me to figure out how to do it. And I had to fumble through it because the powerful man wasn't around. So we teach the men how to do that. So how can you make your partner really feel seen and heard? And thus what ends up happening is the men also start going, oh, wow, she gets me. When the two couples, now they can come together and start forming a bridge. The second thing we teach the guys to do is not to react. Now, there's been a lot of books written about morning routines, tons of them. We have a very specific one that works for our guys. And that's starting off in the morning. We call it the alpha rise and shine, where you're going to be attuned, you're going to learn a little bit. You're going to meditate. You're going to get your body in state. You're going to do something physical. And then you're going to plan your day so that you're not being reactive to the day. You're planning your day. And you're setting yourself up for success. When guys do that consistently, they're able to recharge the battery, so to speak, of the lighthouse and stay on. They're taking care of their health, right? They're making that a priority because that's first thing in the morning. They're either meditating, breathing, reading scripture. All guys have different ways of getting themselves set up to do it. Same thing with the learn. They're learning something new. And again, that could be scripture, that could be a nonfiction book, it could be a video, but something to feed their brain. And then they're planning their day based on what their highest goals are. So when they go into the day, they're knocking off the things that really matter rather than just reacting to fires, which just produces anxiety. I mean, we all do it. We just want to reduce it. And the third thing I'll say is we have the guys do decompression. So this would be the evening routine. So of course we call it the alpha decompression, and all these things have nicknames to them. And this is akin to I don't know. Have either of you ever taken martial arts before or done any martial arts?
No,
I've done. I can do dishes really fast.
Okay, there you go. Close enough. Well, if you've seen a movie in a dojo, you bow when you leave, and the reason you do that is to show respect, but it's also to tell your body essentially, I'm leaving the fighting arts, so I'm not going to do a roundhouse kick to someone's head walking down the street. Like I'm changing my mental state.
Right.
And so we have the guys go through a routine of decompression before they end their day, before they end their work day. Yeah. So they're able to come in as a father or as a husband, not as the CEO, CTO, CMO, or whatever else they're doing at their business. Because then guys just come in and they take their work and their work energy, which is what most of the women complain about, into the home. So they'll do that. In fact, when I leave my office, I have a metal sign that I got custom made that says change of priorities ahead. And I hit that sign to signify that my priorities are changing from, coaching and running a multinational business to going in and being a father of a 3- and 6-year-old and a husband of the woman that I love. Yeah. And that changes my mental state.
I love that. That's awesome. The calendar stuff's good because then when you ask, hey, show me your calendar, they're not embarrassed. They can say, oh, look, there's actually family stuff on there.
Yeah. I mean, and there should be, right? I mean, we look at it as yourselves as business owners and entrepreneurs, the work never ends. And for all of us, the to-do list never ends. I mean, you could go all day and attack that to-do list and magically it self-populates. And you have a beautiful property behind you and you're like, okay, dude, we got to mow the lawn. Okay, we got to do all these things to maintain it. So that never ends. So you got to prioritize taking care of yourself first so that you can show up bigger. Just like the airplane, right? In the case of emergency, put your oxygen mask on yourself first so that you may help other people. Because you're no good if you're passed out. You can't help anybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's roll back just for a second to the empathy thing, because I think that this is a really powerful point. And there's something that comes up sometimes in our relationship, which I'd love to hear your insights on. So Margie and I have done a lot of studying of different personality types. You get your A's and your dots and your animals and all, all these different kinds of things, right? And in Margie's very A type, very get things done, move forward, action sort of person, right? And I tend to be more social and distracted and visionary, right? And so it's interesting to me, the empathy question, because early on in our marriage, I saw that, Margie liked to just nuts and bolts and get things done. And I like to kind of talk about stuff. It was a weird sort of role reversal. As we've gotten older, I find that actually I need to learn more empathy for her because she really deep down likes it. So it'd be interesting for me to hear your perspective on how personalities affect this, like varying different, core personality traits. And I'd be interested to hear how, you develop that, some key tips for developing that empathy as a guy.
Yeah. So we call one thing that we teach is called the hidden motives technique. And it's more than empathy, it's validation. Right. So Margie may come to you and say, and Margie, feel free to jump in with a real complaint, but but she may come in and say, I've been at home all day and I don't feel like I've gotten one thing done, right? Because you're type A, we have type A's. I am one as well. We like to get stuff done, and we're proud of ourselves when we do it. She may say that, and so you might want to reply something like, "Okay, go into yourself and imagine what it would feel like if you felt like you weren't getting things done that you should be." Yeah. So you might just go, "Oh, wow, I'd imagine that would feel really disheartening if you had this plan that you were going to get things done and nothing actually got done." When that happens to me, I feel as if, like the day was wasted and I was a failure. Like, what I want you to do is I want you to know just how awesome I think you are for all the things that you do.
Love that.
So then you're getting into all you're doing is getting into her world and imagine, okay, I'm going, wait a minute. So if I was Margie and I was sitting there trying to get stuff done, what would that feel like for me? And so now we can have a conversation. She might say, no, that's not how I feel at all. Yeah. Cool. We can still have a dialogue, but at least she knows I'm doing more than just listening to the words that she's saying. I'm getting to what she's trying to convey in the message.
Yeah. Yeah. I
The
love that.
emotional part of it.
Too often what I do is, because Margie, I don't know that Margie's ever had a day in her life that she hasn't gotten stuff done. Mother of 11 children, like she does stuff, right?
Motherwhelmed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like she gets stuff done.
Oh yeah.
So, but she has said that exact complaint to me. Is like, oh, this day I just didn't get anything done. And my response has been like, wait a minute, look, you did this, and this.
Name it off.
And she's like, yeah, that was, but I didn't, this point about getting in her mode and the sensing the feeling and validating that, I just retort and try to solve the problem of, no, actually, honey, you are amazing. You did all this stuff. And
contradicting,
yeah. Like,
well, and that's what it is.
It's being contradicted, by the way, just in case you didn't know that.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's you're contradicting or arguing essentially.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're starting an argument with her, and something my wife and I do now. And I'm still a work in progress to the nth degree, but we'll do now is I'll look at her and go, is this one of those times you want me just to listen? Or do you want me to actually give you? No, if she's complaining about something that's bothering her that sounds like she's looking for advice, and she'll say, "No, I just want you to listen."
Yeah,
like, cool. Bring it, and we call that collecting berries, right?
Collect the berries.
We teach the men to empty their wives' berries every day, right? Let her just dump everything out so that she has the emotional freedom to surrender into her natural beauty and femininity, which is what the men want anyway, right? And that creates the space for them to do so, and then they feel safe as long as the guy's not judgmental about it, not giving advice. Going back to the lighthouse, they now feel safe to come to that environment. They feel, hey, this is a trusted place that I could go and share, where I'm not going to be judged.
I love that. So another example that comes to my mind, like one day we moved to a very humid climate, and my wife was like, my hair is driving me crazy. And I'm like, okay. So I sat down, I researched a bunch of stuff. I found like top of the line Dyson hair care stuff. I found the best shampoo, and I ordered all this stuff, and it all shows up. And I'm like, yeah, I solved your problem. I'm here to fix you, right? You want to not frizzy hair? Like I'm on it, babe. And then I started telling her how to fix her hair. That didn't go well.
Yeah, I'd imagine not. I mean, I'm sure she thought this is great that you did it for her, and that wasn't the point, right?
Okay.
It was
very, very sweet, very kind.
It is. Well, I always joke, because I've been coaching this for so long, and I just tell the guys, look, I get it because I've made all the mistakes 50 times. Like I'm a slow learner, right? I keep trying new things until I find what works, and eventually we're able to put this into a methodology that we've been able to use successfully time and time again, as any business is trying to do. But what we're doing as a business or a movement is we're helping people in their marriages, and we just start with the guy. And almost all the men come in with this idea that they need, their wife needs to do this, needs to do that. Like, just slow down. Let's start with a couple of key things for yourself.
Yeah.
And then miraculously what seems to happen is, the whole family changes.
Yeah. So go back to, you talked about the way to, pull the family in to be that lighthouse consistency was, having those routines, filling yourself up and being more consistent yourself, being, and then having that empathy, validating and listening. Other things that you have seen that have been really effective at being that lighthouse, that beacon to pull the family in.
I mean, there's so many. Literally. So we have a private community where we have a couple thousand men that are sharing things every single day. It's extremely active. So I get to see this real-time data come in from things that we test. And myself and the other coaches, we always do it for ourselves first, because all of our coaches are fathers and husbands or have long-term partnerships. Or, some of them, came into this work because they weren't able to save their marriage for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So we see it all the time. It really starts with this idea of self, right? Where does self start for? And sometimes it's creating boundaries too, like taking boundaries. A lot of the men are scared to be selfish, right? And when I say that, we have this negative connotation of selfish. Someone says, well, you might say, Doug, you're selfish if you're going to go work out after this, right? Yeah. And really, when someone's saying that to you, they're really saying, you're not doing what I want you to do. which is truly selfish, right? Like,
right.
That's really the thing. Like it's a manipulation technique. And so we want our guys to be selfish, not selfless. And so that they can, again, using that airplane analogy, they're putting the oxygen mask on themselves first.
Yeah.
A lot of times the guys they'll do anything. They'll say yes and sacrifice for their families. In their view, they become a martyr, which also makes them a victim.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't do it consciously, right? They think they're doing the right thing, kind of like ordering the hair products, right? We think, hey, we're doing the right thing here because we're trying to be good men. And they become almost much more like not a sheepdog, but more like a lapdog, and just doing what they think is going to get the result. And when you think about it, if I'm doing something for my wife so that she'll be happy and love me, that's a transaction.
That's right.
I'm doing it's horse trading. I'm doing something so that I'll get something in return. That's not true love.
Yeah.
And we fall into this. Our society, you see this everywhere. It's like, hey, well, I'll talk to a guy, and these guys are very intelligent men that we work with. They're the top of the food chain, and I'll talk to them like, hey, I bought the lake house that she wanted, and she's still, nagging me or upset, or intimacy is lacking, or whatever it might be. But I'm like, you just did a business transaction.
Right.
Like, was there an agreement? Do you have a contract? Like, and so a lot of times you'll have these covert contracts that also occur. Yeah. And covert contracts are where you won't have an agreement, but in your head there is.
You're keeping score with each other.
Yeah, you're keeping score. And a covert contract might be, well, I'm at work, Margie's raising the kids, and so that means she's also going to take care of the house and do all these things, when maybe she's got that's never been talked about.
Never been discussed, right?
Yeah. And so then you, Joshua, start getting resentment that comes out in ways that aren't sexy, aren't nice. It could be all kinds of things, could be avoidance, whatever you probably modeled as a child. And then there becomes more distance, and that's a covert contract, which is just not fair to Margie in this example at all, because it's never been agreed upon.
Fascinating. Wow. Covert contract. I mean, I think that people, I know I certainly have gotten in my head about all kinds of things, about intimacy, about money, about how to raise the children, about house management and cleanliness, about vacations, about, all the list goes on and on. And, before we got married, I had a really specific idea, because I came from a broken family and I wanted to break the chains of that broken family. Right. So I was like, okay, this is what a great family looks like. And I had really a guidebook or a manual for all these different categories.
In your head.
In my head, right?
Yeah.
Nobody read.
Well, exactly. Well, we don't, it's a shame, right? The two biggest things that cause problems in any human's life are money, typically, or money and relationships. And they're the two subjects that are almost like taboo to talk about, and they're not taught in schools. Yet it causes the most heartache to people and individuals, depression. For men age 14, I think it's to 45 or 46, suicide's the number 2 cause of death, if you look at the CDC website. But that's not talked about, right? There are men that have, decided, hey, my family would be better off without me, is typically the story. And I luckily get to sit down and talk to men who are on the other side of that situation, right? Where that for whatever reason it's changed, and oftentimes they come to this conclusion that, well, they'll be better off without me. I don't know my family or what have you, and it's unfortunate. It's a very dark period for them, and that's where we get it back to, like, men filling their cups, men figuring out how to, take the leadership role, be the guy that was fun and loving, not just sitting down to have a board meeting about finances and expectations and, like we were when you first dated, and be that person again. And what happens when we get the men to become activated is, one is the men feel amazing. They feel vibrant, youthful, like their old selves. Two is the women are happy because, like, great, the guy that I married, that I saw when I said I do, she saw his potential. Like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but typically what I hear from the women is they can look at their men. What pisses them off, frankly, the most is they'll look at the man that they're married to and see his potential that he's not living into.
Oh yeah.
And that's frustrating for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure it is for my wife, but it's frustrating for them to see that. And if the guy's striving for it, great. Most women are very, very patient with us, which is amazing.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
Talk about that specifically is living into your potential and striving for that. Yeah, it's a great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, as long as you're doing something for it. It's what happens is guys become dismayed and they think, okay, I need to do something about business or whatever, or worst case, they give up. And the way I look at that, it's, the analogy I use is, or I always say, is when your wife married you, she was marrying into a stock that she was betting was going to rise.
Right.
This is great now, and it's going to get better. And when that stock starts to decline year over year, and the man's not doing anything, getting off the couch to do anything about it, well, it doesn't look good, right? It doesn't bring a lot of hope to the relationship, or hope for her, or security, right? If things are to go wrong.
Yeah, and that absolutely turns the lighthouse off. I mean that
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting question. You teach these men to do great stuff. Have you seen situations where the men really start making progress and the women are just not receptive to those changes or don't respond? And in those situations, if you've seen that, what do you tell the men to do, and how to react to that, or how to be proactive about managing it?
Yeah, so I'll answer this in two different parts. First one is, there are times when the man waits too long. So if you Google it, statistically, 70% of divorces are initiated by a woman. That stat goes up to 90% if she's got a college degree or better. Woo. So think about that for a second. Yeah. Already we have a 50% divorce rate. So nobody thinks they're going to be on that side of the coin, right? Nobody does. Of those people that do get divorced, if they have a college degree, 9 out of 10 of those are initiated by the woman. Wow. So I've been doing this for years now, 7 years. And when we talk to the women, typically what we find out is she's been waiting and waiting and waiting. This is not unless there's an acute issue that happened, an affair she finds out about or something along those lines. Typically, she's been just hoping or giving signs to the guy. And women really usually need a safe landing place. Right. So it'd be a 2-year plan before she exits oftentimes. Right. Yeah. So I'm sharing that all with you because sometimes it takes the guy to get the divorce papers in his hand and everything else before he calls us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we're like, this may be too late.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's when he shows up. Now I have countless posts that I could show you where men have just said, their wives basically said, this is amazing. I'm so happy for you. This is what I've always wanted for you. However, for me, it's too late. Right. I've moved on. And it happens. We get the other one where people actually physically show up to our program and have been divorced and didn't want to for a lot of reasons. Or they're still married, but for religious reasons, but they're not really together at all. Yeah.
Right.
And then they'll turn it around. So what we tell the guys is to be consistent. What we see more often happen is one of 3 scenarios. The man starts to rise, right? And then the woman is spiteful that he's doing better and will try to pull him down.
Right.
Crab in the bucket theory, right? Pull him down. So we do see that. And then we also see that the man starts to rise, and then he will look. This is rare, but he'll look and go, why have I been putting up with all of this for so long? All the humiliation. Sometimes there's more physical abuse because men don't talk about the fact that their wives might be hitting them or other things. Mm-hmm. I get to hear the stories, and these are powerful guys. Like, some big guys come in. We talk to us about. They'll show up to a call with a black eye, and they'll go, "Wow, you're 6'3", you're a big guy. What happened?" Oh, I was sleeping. My wife rolled over and just elbowed me in the eye as hard as she could. So again, very rare. The third option that we see the most common, I'm going to make up the stat, is like 90% of the time, is the man rises and the woman rises at the same time, or sometimes the woman's already there and he catches up to her. Sometimes, but they come to this equilibrium where they both continue to work on themselves, or sometimes formally not. and they continue to rise together. And that's why I do this. That's why I do what I do. Is that just, I got countless cards I'm pointing to a wall you guys can't see hanging up, or from wives, from kids, right? The children, just like they see it and they're so thankful and grateful for their dad, in this case, doing the work.
Yeah. I love it. And I was hoping you were going to go that direction with that question, because I think that from what I've experienced, what Margie and I have experienced, couples that we have dealt with, and I also served in a religious ecclesiastical position for a while and got to interview thousands of people. I didn't have the tools and training that you do, but I heard a lot of stuff. And the thing that I found was, and I think what you're saying is, most couples, they want to figure it out. They want to be on the same team. They want to grow together. They just don't have the tools and resources to do it. And you know, and the crazy part is like, we don't learn this in school. It's not taught in elementary school or junior high or high school or college. You know, it's really like this lost art. And I'm so grateful you guys are bringing it back to the world. It's very cool. Really cool.
Yeah. Thank you. And like I said, this is my passion. This is my legacy. This is what I love to do. And my wife supports me traveling around the world doing this for men everywhere. And I love it.
Super awesome. So, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, that Margie and I didn't get to, that you really want to share that you think would be really useful for our listeners today? I mean, I could talk, as you can tell, I'm passionate about this. I could talk for days. I love this subject matter because I get to see the results. So nothing in terms of this conversation comes to mind. But yeah, I guess I would just say to anybody is, if you're on the fence, get off, right? Whatever you do, one way or the other, just get off and move forward. Do something to better yourself and your relationships, regardless of what it is. Just do something.
Right.
Nice. I love it. And I think that in that taking action and moving forward, a lot of times, and maybe I'll just follow up with one other quick question. I see a lot of men who lose a lot of self-confidence. Like they've tried stuff and maybe their business has failed. Maybe they've gone through multiple divorces or a divorce before. Maybe they've got children that hate their guts and they don't know why, right? So they've got these multiple touch points where in their perspective, they feel like they've failed and have lost their moxie, right?
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to hear your message to those guys, because, we say, hey, get off the fence and do something. And a lot of them, I think, are on the fence because they're afraid to do something, right?
Yeah. And most of them are. And, if you're not growing, you're dying, just like a plant in life. And I have a poster above my left shoulder, and it's a ticket. And you may have seen it before. But it's one of those motivational things that says, one life, guaranteed one life. Now, you may have more. I don't know what, but I know it's not Super Mario Brothers. I got one shot at this game. So you want to keep moving forward. And if what you're doing isn't working, you deserve more than just average. Life is meant to be lived for more than just average, right? Yeah. So take action now and move forward. I was that guy that, because the powerful man, there wasn't a methodology. There were a lot of theories that were out there from books and courses I was taking. I went all in when my marriage wasn't working. I love this woman, but why can't we connect? Why can't I figure this out? She's smart. I'm smart-ish. But, why can't we at least figure out this answer here? And I went through everything, and it was disheartening at times, right? And I would try something that somebody would say, and I would fall down because I was missing parts of the steps, right? That no one was connecting the dots. Right. And, what I'll tell these guys, and I've seen this with hundreds of other men, just had a guy in his late 60s reunited with his 40-some-year-old daughter that were connected. And he was just tears flowing down his face because they were connected because he started showing up. Yeah. So it's never too late. You got to do something. And if you're stuck, being stuck is the worst. So, when you're in the valley of darkness, you just got to keep on moving. That's right. That's right. That reminds me of Dr. Seuss's book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, and they get stuck in the waiting place, right? So waiting for everything, wondering the bus to come. It's like that. Being stuck is horrible. Even Dr. Seuss knows this. Yeah, Dr. Seuss knows everything. Those books are amazing, aren't they? He knows everything. He knows everything. Well, Doug, this has been an incredible time with you, and your wisdom is just off the charts. We're so grateful. I'm sure that some of our listeners would love to know how to dive deeper into your world and connect with you guys. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about an entry point, or what's the best way for them to
to find out more about you or to join programs or show up at the 106-acre ranch or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, really, this is, like I said, it's my passion, and you don't have to go through our programs, but we've put out over 700 podcasts. We give away all our material literally for free out there, just as we're sharing, what our techniques are and things of that nature. We have an 8-week program called the Activation Method, but start at the free stuff, right? Don't need to invest a lot of money unless you've got the divorce papers or you want to move forward fast. Start with it. Make sure it resonates with you. Right. That's the key. And look and read the testimonials. So if you go to thepowerfulman.com, you can look at real guys like us and some wives who don't want to be on camera, don't necessarily, but they feel the need to because it's changed their family's lives to spread the message, and find somebody if it resonates with you and see if it's a good fit.
Love it. So thepowerfulman.com, good place to start. Yeah. And the free podcast, I love that. I love your generosity. It's really cool.
Oh, well, likewise. You guys are doing the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the activation course sounds incredible. So look for me in a theater near you soon. I'd love to fit in that. Be cool.
That'd be great.
So, again, thank you very much for your time. We deeply appreciate it and wish you the very best of success. And just from Margie and I personally, and from our listeners and from so many other men around the world, we just express our gratitude for who you are and what you're doing and how you're helping to change families, strengthen them, and help them to be happier. It's a beautiful thing. So.
It is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great.
Take care.
All right. Have
Bye
a
now.
great day.
Bye.
Bye.